Before we crack open tonight's cursed can of content, I just want to say a big thank you to all our subscribers, and an extra sinister shout out to the loyal members of the Sinister Elite. You legends help keep the darkness alive. If you're enjoying the stories and want to take it a step further, hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and consider joining the Sinister Elite by clicking that join button below. Members get access to creepy custom emojis and exclusive Sinister Elite badges that level up the longer you survive with us. It's like loyalty, but spookier. All right, lights off, headphones in, and let's summon something we'll all regret. I used to think graveyards were the scariest part of a cemetery. The mist, the angel statues, the endless rows of stones. Turns out, I was wrong. The worst place isn't outside with the graves. It's inside, where the dead are stacked like books on shelves, behind slabs of marble, with neat little brass nameplates. The Mausoleum. My name's Colin, and I work night security at Fairview Memorial Park, a cemetery that covers about 30 acres on the edge of town. Before you ask, no, it doesn't pay well. It's a glorified flashlight and radio gig. I took the job after getting laid off from a warehouse gig, figuring, hey, it's quiet, no heavy lifting, no customers yelling at me, easy money. On my first night, the groundskeeper, an older guy named Ray, gave me a tour of the mausoleum. If you can call walking down echoing stone corridors while pointing at locked vaults a tour, the whole place smelled like damp limestone and flowers that had gone bad a week ago. Ray kept it short, but he did tell me one important thing. You can check the outside all you want, but after dark, never go inside. Lock the gate. Leave it. That's the one rule. I laughed. What? You think the dead get restless? Ray didn't even crack a smile. No, son. I think you don't want to know what they sound like when they wake up. I figured he was just hazing the new guy. Every job's got some dumb superstition, right? In construction, it was never whistle at night or you'll call the spirits. In warehousing, it was, don't ride the forklift backwards after midnight. Okay, that one was probably just because Kyle snapped his ankle doing exactly that. But Ray looked dead serious. And maybe I should have listened harder. The first week went smooth. I patrolled the perimeter, checked the gates, and spent most of the night in the little security shack, sipping gas station coffee, and watching raccoons do raccoon stuff on the grainy camera feeds. The mausoleum gate was always locked. The building sat in the middle of the cemetery, a rectangular stone block with greenish copper doors and stained glass windows that barely let moonlight through. Then came Thursday night. It was about 1 a.m. when I heard it. At first, I thought it was a stray cat, a faint scratching sound. Then it got louder, more insistent, and I realized it was coming from the mausoleum. I grabbed my flashlight and radio, walked over, and shined the beam across the building. The copper doors looked normal, padlock hanging just as it should, but the sound didn't stop. It wasn't outside. It was inside. Scurch, scurch, like fingernails on stone. I swallowed hard. It's just rats, I told myself. Or bats. Or some other vermin. But the scratching wasn't the worst part. Someone whispered my name. I froze. My light shook across the stained glass window, catching a blur of movement behind it. Just for a second, like a shadow. Colin. I backed up 3 steps, heart hammering. Nobody should know my name. Nobody should be in there. Colin. The voice was muffled, but it was close. Right behind the doors. Now I'd like to tell you I was brave. That I squared my shoulders, radioed it in, and marched up like a professional. But here's what I actually did. I dropped my damn flashlight, tripped on the curb, and almost face-planted into the gravel. Smooth, real tactical. I scrambled up, scooped the flashlight, and half ran back to the shack. I locked the door, sat down, and told myself I was imagining things. Too much caffeine, sleep deprivation, my brain playing tricks in the silence. Then the camera feed blinked. Every other screen was fine. The front gate, the fence line, the little pond. But the mausoleum feed went snowy, like an old VHS tape. For a few seconds, I saw nothing but static. Then, clear as day, a figure appeared in the frame. A man in a black suit standing just inside the mausoleum doors. The suit was old-fashioned, shiny with age, the kind you see in sepia photos. The man's face was pale, jaw slack, like he'd forgotten how to hold it shut. He turned toward the camera and smiled. The feed cut out. I didn't sleep that morning. I didn't even tell Ray. What was I supposed to say? "Hey, boss. I think one of the corpses smiled at me last night?" Yeah, that'd go over great. But the next night, same time, same place. Scratching at the mausoleum, whispering, static on the feed. I stopped locking the shack door. Felt safer that way, like I could bolt out if something decided to come knocking. By the end of the week, I believed Ray. 100%. The mausoleum isn't just a building, it's a trap. For them. For us. I don't know. But the dead don't sleep there. Not really. And if you ever find yourself on shift in a cemetery at night, remember this rule. Don't go inside the mausoleum after dark, no matter what you hear. I swore I wouldn't go near that mausoleum again. Lock it, leave it, let the corpses handle their own scratching. That was the plan. But plans don't mean jack when your boss hands you a key and says, "Check inside." It was Saturday evening, and Ray showed up before I clocked in. He looked worse than usual, deep bags under his eyes, stubble like he'd stopped caring. He handed me a ring of keys that jingled like a warning. "Storm knocked the power last night," he muttered. "Some wiring got fried in the mausoleum. Gotta make sure the breakers aren't blown. Just a quick check." In and out, I stared at him. "You literally told me never to go in there." Ray squinted like I'd said something stupid. "I told you never to go in after dark. You'll be there before sundown." Don't overthink it, easy for him to say. I didn't see him volunteering to go along. By the time I got to the mausoleum, the sky was already dimming, one of those purple-gold Midwestern sunsets where the horizon looks like it's bleeding out. The copper doors gleamed dully. My stomach sank. I fumbled with the keys, found the right one, and unlocked the gate. The sound echoed down the stone corridors inside. Way too loud. The mausoleum air hit me like a refrigerator. Cold, damp, thick with the smell of old flowers. My flashlight beam bounced across marble walls lined with crypts, each with brass plaques. Beloved father, devoted wife. 1912 to 1965. I tried to focus. The breaker box was supposed to be at the far end, near the chapel area. Just walk straight, check the box, and leave. No sightseeing. My shoes squeaked on the stone floor. Every step sounded like someone following me. I told myself a joke to cut the tension. Why don't mausoleums have Wi-Fi? Because the connection dropped 6 feet under, I chuckled nervously. The silence didn't. Halfway down, I passed a row where one of the marble seals had a faint crack, a little jagged line across the stone. My light caught something dark in the crevice. At first, I thought it was dirt. Then it pulsed, like a vein. Nope. I kept walking. When I finally reached the breaker box, I flipped it open. Everything looked normal. I checked the fuses, saw no damage, closed it back up. That should have been it. Done. But then I heard it again. "Colin." Soft, drawn out, echoing down the corridor behind me. I spun, flashlight trembling. The beam stretched over dozens of vaults. Nothing moved. "Colin." It came from deeper in, near the chapel. I should have bolted, locked the place, and never looked back. But some dumb part of me thought, what if it's Ray screwing with me? So I walked toward the voice. The chapel was a small square room at the end of the mausoleum, with pews that could fit maybe 20 people. Stained glass windows glowed faintly with the last smear of sunset. And someone was sitting in the front pew. A man in a black suit. The same one I'd seen on the camera feed. He sat perfectly still, hands folded, staring at the stained glass. His jaw slack, skin pale as candle wax. "Colin," he whispered again, without turning his head. I froze in the doorway. "You're not real." He turned then. His neck creaked like dry wood. His eyes were milky white, but they locked onto me like he saw. And he smiled. I bolted. My sprint down the corridor echoed like gunfire. My boots slipped on the polished floor, and I nearly ate it on a corner. My flashlight beam jumped over rows of names. Henderson. Clark Ramirez. I didn't dare stop to look. Behind me I heard footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Not running. Just following. By the time I reached the doors, the last of the sun had bled out. Shadows swallowed the mausoleum. I shoved at the copper doors, rattling the lock. But they wouldn't budge. The padlock was back in place. I fumbled with the keyring, hands slick with sweat, trying every damn key. None worked. That's when the whispering started. Not just my name this time. Dozens of voices all around me, murmuring from behind the crypt walls. Hissing words I couldn't understand, like prayers said backward. The marble slabs rattled. Dust trickled from the seams. I screamed at the doors, bashing them with my shoulder. Nothing. Then, quiet. Every voice stopped. Every rattle ceased. I turned, panting, flashlight shaking in my grip. The corridor was empty. And then, one by one, the vault doors began to slide open. The sound of stone sliding on stone is something I'll never forget. It's low, grinding, and final, like the world itself is locking into place. One vault door creaked open, then another. The air shifted, colder, heavier, as if the mausoleum had exhaled for the first time in years. I staggered back from the copper doors, flashlight beam jittering. My hand kept fumbling over useless keys. Nothing worked. The padlock clung to the doors like it had always been there. From the nearest open vault, a pale hand slipped out. The fingers were long, gray, almost rubbery. They flexed slowly, like testing the air. Jesus Christ. The hand gripped the edge of the vault. Something began to pull itself forward. I spun and bolted down the corridor, deeper into the mausoleum. Not my best idea, but when death itself is climbing out behind you, instincts don't exactly consult a map. The hallways branched, twisting around corners I hadn't seen before. My beam flashed across brass plaques, names blurring into nonsense. The mausoleum felt bigger now, sprawling, endless. Everywhere I turned, more vaults were opening. Some just an inch, others wide enough for shadows to stir inside. Whispers followed me. Not one voice anymore. A chorus. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Some laughed, some moaned. Some whispered my name like they were tasting it. Colin. Coolin. I wanted to scream back, "Shut the hell up!" But my lungs felt crushed. I ducked into a side chamber, slamming the flashlight beam around. It looked like a storage room. Wooden ladders, a stack of folding chairs, flower vases caked in dust. I pressed my back against the wall, chest heaving. I told myself, "It's a nightmare. You're hallucinating. None of this is real." That's when one of the vases tipped over by itself and shattered at my feet. I jumped back, nearly tripping on the chair stack. The shards rolled across the floor in unnatural patterns, forming letters. "Get out." "I'm trying," I yelled, voice cracking. The whispers hissed louder, angrier, like I'd offended them. I bolted back into the hallway. My flashlight sputtered once, then steadied. Ahead of me, the corridor stretched long and straight, lined with vaults. At the far end, something stood. The man in the black suit. He was closer now, as if he'd been waiting. His slack jaw hung lower, like it might fall off entirely. He raised one hand and pointed at me. Every vault on either side burst open at once. Shapes spilled out, shadows more than bodies, jerking and twitching like broken marionettes. Some crawled on hands and knees, others dragged themselves half out and froze, mouths opening in silent screams. The smell hit me. Damp rot, mold, a sweetness that turned my stomach. I ran, because what else could I do? Straight toward the suited man, because he was the only thing solid in this nightmare. But when I got closer, he didn't move. He just kept pointing, jaw slack, eyes like curdled milk. Then he whispered something I almost didn't catch. Rule. Broken. I stopped short. My brain scrambled. What rule? I shouted. I didn't. Then it hit me. Ray's warning. Never go inside after dark. I looked up at the stained glass windows. The last light was gone. The mausoleum was black except for my flashlight. I'd crossed the line. Panic surged through me. I swung my flashlight around, looking for anything. An exit, a crack, a vent. That's when I noticed it. A service door halfway down the corridor, half hidden behind an old flower stand. I sprinted for it, vault shadows lurching on either side. Hands clawed at me from the crypts, pale fingers brushing my jacket. One snagged my sleeve and ripped it open. Another grazed my neck, cold as dry ice. I smashed into the service door, shoulder first. It rattled but didn't give. I shoved harder, then kicked, flashlight beam bouncing wildly. The suited man's whisper echoed closer. Broken rule. The vault shadows were pouring out now, spilling onto the floor like liquid bodies, crawling toward me. I kicked the door again. It groaned. Splinters cracked at the frame. One more kick. The door burst open into pitch blackness. I didn't think. I dove through, slammed it shut, and threw the bolt. On the other side, the whispers rose to a furious roar. Fingers scratched against the wood, nails tearing grooves. I sank to the floor, panting, flashlight shaking in my hand. The chamber I'd landed in was tiny, bare concrete walls, no windows, just a stairwell leading down. Down. And on the wall above the stairs, scrawled in what looked like dried rust or blood, were words I wish I hadn't read. Once you go down, you don't come back up. The scratching on the other side of the service door wasn't letting up, nails on wood over and over like 100 restless hands clawing to get in. The whispers had melted into a low hum, like a funeral chant sung by people without tongues. I should have stayed put. Just pressed my back against the wall, clutched my flashlight, and waited until dawn. But every second I sat there, the wood bowed more, dust trickling from the frame. They'd break through eventually, which left one option: down. The stairwell was narrow, steep, and smelled like damp earth. My boots echoed against the steps, each one sounding like I was being swallowed deeper. The flashlight beam caught spider webs thick enough to look woven like someone had been spinning them on purpose. The deeper I went, the colder it got. My breath puffed out in pale clouds, and the beam dimmed as though the batteries were dying. I slapped the flashlight a few times, muttering, "Not now, you bastard." It flickered, but held. At the bottom, the stairs opened into a low-ceilinged chamber. Concrete walls, dripping pipes, and rows of wooden shelves sagging under boxes. Not just boxes, coffins. Old, wooden, rotting coffins stacked like someone's forgotten storage unit. I gagged at the smell. Not the clean, dusty scent upstairs. This was wet, pungent, like meat left out in the rain. I stumbled forward, flashlight shaking. The walls were lined with more coffins, some cracked open. Straw and brittle bones spilled out. That's when I noticed something worse. Not all the bones were brittle. A skull lay half out of a shattered coffin, jaw hanging open, eye sockets black and hollow. Except they weren't empty. Something shifted inside like ash swirling in water. And then the skull turned toward me. "Nope!" I shouted out loud, voice bouncing off the walls. I backed up fast, knocking over another coffin. It split open with a splintery crack, and a half-mummified hand flopped onto my boot. I screamed, "Don't judge," and kicked it away. The whispers started again, but not above this time. From the coffins. "Colin!" One word. Low, breathy, layered in dozens of voices. I snapped my light around. Every skull, every corpse fragment seemed angled toward me now. Their mouths were slack, but the voices rolled out just the same. "Colin! Colin! You broke the rule." My knees locked. I couldn't move. My flashlight trembled in a jittering beam across wood and bone. From the corner of the room, one of the coffins shifted. Slowly. The lid scraped aside. A man sat up. His suit was rotted, threads hanging like cobwebs. His face was sunken, lips black, but his eyes, Cloudy white, same as the man upstairs. His jaw cracked as he spoke. "You don't belong here." "I agree," I blurted, voice shrill. "Great observation, Sherlock." He climbed out, moving stiffly like his joints weren't made for motion anymore. He straightened, bones creaking, then pointed a crooked finger at me. "Debt must be paid." My stomach flipped. "Debt? Look, I don't owe anybody. I'm broke. You want debt? Call the student loan people." The dead man didn't laugh. He just started walking toward me. I bolted deeper into the chamber, squeezing between stacks of coffins. My shoulder caught one, knocking it loose. It slammed to the ground, splitting open, and a cascade of bones rattled across the floor like dice. The whispers rose again, louder now, echoing through the chamber. Debt. 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 My light caught another passage at the back, a rough stone tunnel that looked older than the rest of the structure. I ducked into it, the ceiling so low I had to crouch. The whispers followed. So did the man in the suit. The tunnel twisted, turned, then opened into another chamber, this one carved from bare rock, dripping with moisture. The floor was dirt, packed hard. In the center, a pit yawned, black and endless, and written around the rim of the pit, carved into the stone in jagged letters, was the same phrase I'd seen upstairs. "Once you go down, you don't come back up." Behind me, footsteps scraped closer. The suited man's silhouette filled the tunnel entrance, head tilted unnaturally to one side. "You broke the rule," he whispered, voice dry as sand. "Now you join us." The pit breathed. I swear to God it exhaled, hot, damp air rushing up to hit my face. Something moved down there. Massive. Waiting. I had a choice. Turn and face the dead, or go into the pit. Neither was good. Both promised things I'd never wake up from. My flashlight flickered, then died, and in the darkness, I felt hands, dozens of them closing around my shoulders, guiding me toward the edge. The hands didn't shove me into the pit. That would have been merciful. They guided me slow, steady, like pallbearers easing a casket toward its grave. My boots slid in the dirt, the heat rising from below slicking my skin with sweat. I thrashed, elbowed, kicked, but every time I connected, it was like hitting packed earth. The hands never loosened. Above, the suited man leaned against the tunnel wall, head cocked, watching. He didn't need to say it, but he did anyway. "You broke the rule." The edge of the pit came closer. The breathing from below grew louder, wet, heavy, like lungs the size of subway tunnels. "Wait!" I shouted. My voice cracked, desperate. "I didn't know the rule." "First offense, warning only, right?" No one laughed. The ground vanished under me. For a moment, I was weightless. Then I fell. The pit wasn't bottomless. I hit hard-packed soil and rolled, gasping, bruised but somehow unbroken. My flashlight, dead a moment ago, sparked weakly back to life. I wish it hadn't. The chamber was massive, a natural cavern stretching into blackness. The walls weren't smooth stone. They were ribbed, like the inside of a throat. Wet. Pulsing. I staggered to my feet, swallowing bile. My beam caught movement at the edges. Figures stood there. Dozens of them, maybe more. Not corpses, not exactly. They were stretched, distorted, skin melted into the cavern walls, mouths frozen in silent screams. Some of them still moved. Fingers twitched. Eyes rolled wetly in sockets, tracking me. "Jesus Christ," I whispered. One of them jerked forward, tearing free of the wall with a sound like Velcro ripping. It collapsed onto the floor, dragging itself toward me. Its face was a warped smear of features, but its mouth still worked. "Colin!" I screamed and backed up straight into something worse. The floor shook. A tremor rolled through the chamber, dust and moisture raining from above. The thing breathing in the dark was moving closer. The first thing I saw were the eyes, huge, glistening, lidless orbs, reflecting my weak flashlight like headlights in fog. Then teeth. Not neat rows, not human, but jagged ridges jutting from wet flesh, spiraling down into a gaping maw. The cavern wasn't a cavern. It was a body. I was standing inside it. The pit had been a throat. I was in the stomach. The thing bellowed, a sound so deep my bones rattled. The walls rippled, the trapped bodies shuddering as if in agreement. I bolted, legs pumping, looking for any exit. My light caught a narrow opening high up in the wall, a tunnel barely wide enough to squeeze through. But the floor beneath me was softening, liquefying. Each step sank deeper, like running across a soaked mattress. Hands shot out of the muck, grabbing my ankles, trying to pull me under. I kicked, tore free, lunged for the tunnel. My fingers caught the edge, nails scraping stone. I hauled myself up, grunting, flashlight clamped in my teeth. The monster roared again, hot wind blasting up my back. The tunnel walls vibrated like they were going to close in. I didn't look back. I clawed forward, dirt and slime filling my mouth and nose. My flashlight slipped, tumbled into the darkness below. The last thing I saw before the beam vanished was the suited man, impossibly down there too, standing on the shifting flesh, still pointing at me. "You broke the rule." The tunnel twisted upward, tight as a coffin. My chest scraped rock with every breath. I kept crawling, arms burning, lungs wheezing, until finally, light. Not bright, not daylight. Just a pale glow, like moonlight filtered through stained glass. I scrambled out onto a landing and collapsed. My clothes were soaked, caked with filth. My skin felt bruised everywhere. When I finally looked around, I realized I was back in the mausoleum. The landing was a maintenance alcove just above the chapel. I could see the pews below, dimly lit by moonlight through the windows. Empty. Silent. No suited man. No open vaults. No whispers. I almost cried. Then I saw the names. Carved into the wall of the alcove, dozens of names etched deep. Not random. Security guards. Everyone had a first name, last name, and a date. The most recent was from 2004, and just beneath it, freshly scratched into the stone, was mine. Colin, 2025. I stared at my name carved into the stone until my eyes blurred. My first instinct was denial. Someone else must have scratched it in as a prank, right? But the grooves were fresh, flakes of dust still clinging to the cuts. It hadn't been there when I went down. I reached out and traced the letters with my fingertip, half expecting them to vanish. Instead, the stone felt warm, like skin. That's when I knew. Whatever the mausoleum was, it wasn't just holding the dead. It was keeping a tally, and I'd been added. I dropped down from the alcove into the chapel, landing hard on the stone floor. The pews stood empty. The stained glass glowed faintly with moonlight, and the copper doors at the far end loomed like salvation. I ran. My boots thundered down the aisle. I didn't care if something heard me. I just needed out. When I hit the doors, I slammed my shoulder against them. The padlock clattered, loose. My heart soared. Maybe I'd made it. The doors creaked open. For one brief second, I saw the cemetery outside, trees swaying in the wind, the gravel path, the world I knew. Then the view shifted. The trees weren't trees. They were crooked marble vaults, stretching upward into a starless sky. The gravel path twisted into a spiral, leading nowhere. The world beyond the doors wasn't outside. It was just more mausoleum. "No!" My voice cracked. "No, no, 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 no." I slammed the door shut, chest heaving. When I turned, he was there. The man in the black suit. He stood in the center of the chapel, exactly where I'd just been. Hands folded, head tilted. His cloudy eyes locked on mine, and his jaw sagged wider than it should have, like it might unhinge completely. "You broke the rule," he whispered. "I didn't mean to." My voice cracked, too high, too desperate. Ray told me." The suited man raised one hand. I shut up. Slowly, deliberately, he pointed at the pews. For a second, I didn't understand. Then I saw them. Shapes filling the benches one by one. Pale, gray, rotted faces staring forward. Empty sockets, slack mouths, some smiling faintly. All sitting like a congregation waiting for service. And every one of them turned to look at me. My throat went dry. "I don't belong here," I croaked. The suited man tilted his head. His jaw clicked. "You do now." The pews creaked as the congregation leaned forward in unison, not rushing, not lunging, just shifting, like waves of attention rolling onto me. The air grew thick, every breath like inhaling wet cloth. My vision blurred at the edges. I staggered, knees threatening to buckle. "No," I whispered. I'm not one of you." Then I remembered the names in the alcove. Every guard before me, every one of them thinking the same thing. And now my name was carved there too. I don't know how long I stood there, flashlight clutched in a shaking hand, staring at that congregation of the dead. Minutes. Hours. The moonlight crawled across the stained glass, painting the chapel in shifting colors. Eventually, the suited man lowered his hand. The congregation slumped back into their pews, still watching, but no longer advancing. The whispering stopped. The scratching ceased. Only silence remained. And in that silence, a thought bloomed in my head. Not in my voice. Not in any voice I knew. "You're ours now." I don't remember leaving. I don't remember walking back to the shack or clocking out or driving home. I just remember sitting on my bed hours later, staring at my phone, wondering if I should call Ray. But what would I even say? "Hey, I think the Mausoleum ate me last night. Can I get workers' comp?" So I didn't call. I went back the next night. Because that's the worst part. I have to. The rule isn't about safety, it's about ownership. Once you break it, you belong to the Mausoleum. And every night when I clock in, I hear them waiting. The whispers, the scratching. And one day soon, when the Mausoleum decides my shift is over, I'll join the congregation. I'll take my seat on the pew, cloudy eyes fixed on the next poor bastard who breaks the rule. The rule: never go inside the Mausoleum after dark. The truth: if you do, you don't walk back out alone.